3 months before this concert, Michael Jackson had called Madonna at 2 a.m. He was crying. His health was deteriorating. The media was destroying him, and he told her he didn't know how much longer he could keep going. Madonna made him promise one thing. Don't let them see you disappear. Let them see you stand. On September 8, 2001, Michael showed up at her Madison Square Garden concert in a wheelchair, hidden in the crowd. When Madonna recognized him, she stopped the show. What happened next? Fulfilled that promise in a way that 80,000 people would never forget. It started with a phone call that Madonna almost didn't answer. It was 2 in the morning, on a Tuesday in June 2001, and she'd just gotten home from rehearsal for her upcoming Drowned World Tour. Her phone rang, and the caller ID showed a number she didn't recognize. She picked it up anyway. Madonna. The voice on the other end was barely a whisper, but she knew it instantly. Michael. There was a long pause, and then she heard it. The sound of someone trying desperately not to cry, and failing. "I can't do this anymore," Michael Jackson said, his voice breaking. "I just can't." Madonna sat up in bed, suddenly wide awake. She and Michael had known each other for almost 20 years. The media loved to pit them against each other, the king of pop versus the queen of pop, as if there wasn't room in the world for both of them. But they weren't rivals. They were two people who understood something that almost nobody else on the planet could understand, what it felt like to live under that kind of scrutiny, that kind of constant suffocating attention. "Talk to me," Madonna said gently. "What's happening?" For the next hour, Michael talked. He told her about the medications he was taking just to sleep. He told her about the panic attacks that left him unable to breathe. He told her about the photographers who followed him everywhere, the tabloids that printed lies about him daily. "They want me to disappear," Michael said finally. "And maybe they're right. Maybe I should." "No," Madonna said firmly. Don't you dare let them win. I'm so tired, Madonna. I don't know if I have any fight left." Madonna knew what Michael was going through because she'd been through versions of it herself. The constant judgment, the invasion of privacy, the feeling that the whole world was watching and waiting for you to fail. "Michael, listen to me," she said. "You don't have to fight right now, but promise me something. Promise me that when you're ready, whenever that is, you won't let them see you disappear. Let them see you stand. Let them see that they didn't break you." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "I don't know if I can," Michael whispered. "You can. And when you're ready, I'll be there. I promise." 3 months later, Madonna was in the middle of her Drowned World Tour. On September 8, 2001, she was scheduled to perform at Madison Square Garden in New York City. 2 sold-out shows, over 80,000 people total. This was the evening show, and the energy in the arena was electric. What Madonna didn't know was that in the VIP section, in seat J47, someone very special had just arrived. Michael Jackson had made the decision to come to the concert only that morning. His security team had advised against it. His doctors had advised against it. Everyone said it was too risky, that he was too weak, that the media would destroy him if they saw him looking frail. But Michael had remembered what Madonna said. Let them see you stand. Getting into Madison Square Garden without being recognized required an elaborate plan. They'd purchased the ticket under a fake name. They'd arranged for a wheelchair from the hospital where Michael had been receiving treatment. And they'd created a disguise. Michael wore oversized black sunglasses that covered half his face, a black fedora pulled low, and a heavy coat despite the warm September evening. To anyone who looked at him, he appeared to be just another person in the crowd. His security team wheeled him to his seat 20 minutes before the show started. The people around him barely glanced in his direction. Everyone was focused on the stage, waiting for Madonna to appear. The lights went down, and the crowd erupted. Madonna's show opened with a video montage, and then there she was. Michael watched from his wheelchair, and for the first time in months, he felt something other than despair. He felt inspired. Madonna performed Impressive Instant, then Runaway Lover, then Beautiful Stranger. The show was spectacular. This was what Michael loved about Madonna. She never played it safe. She never apologized for being exactly who she was. During the fourth song, Frozen, Madonna was crossing the stage, and her eyes swept across the VIP section. Her gaze landed on the man in the wheelchair in seat J47. For a fraction of a second, she kept singing, but something made her look again. The oversized sunglasses, the fedora, the way he was sitting, perfectly still, watching her with an intensity that felt familiar. Madonna's voice wavered for just a note. She knew that posture. She knew that energy. During the next song, Madonna deliberately moved to that side of the stage. She needed to be sure. As she sang, she looked directly at the man in the wheelchair. He was crying. Even behind the sunglasses, she could see tears running down his face. Madonna felt her heart crack open. She knew who it was. She finished the song and transitioned into Vogue. This was usually one of the high-energy highlights of the show. But halfway through, Madonna stopped singing. The music continued for a few bars before her band realized something was wrong and stopped playing. The backup dancers froze, confused. 80,000 people went from screaming to dead silence in about 15 seconds. Madonna walked to the edge of the stage. "Can we get some lights on section J, please?" The lighting crew brought up the house lights on that section. Hundreds of faces suddenly illuminated, all looking confused. Madonna pointed directly at seat J47, the person in the wheelchair. "Yeah, you, in the black hat. I need you to take off those sunglasses. Right now." There was a long, suspended moment where nobody in the entire arena breathed. Slowly, Michael reached up and removed his sunglasses. Even with the fedora still on, people started to recognize him. The gasps started small and grew into a wave that rippled through the entire arena. "Oh my God, that's Michael Jackson." The arena exploded into chaos, screaming, crying, people standing on their seats, trying to see better. Madonna's voice cut through the noise. "Everybody sit down and be quiet." The authority in her voice was absolute. 80,000 people obeyed. The arena fell silent again. Madonna looked directly at Michael. "Michael, what are you doing hiding in the crowd?" Michael Jackson couldn't speak. He just shook his head, overwhelmed. "How long has it been?" Madonna asked the crowd. "Since any of us have seen the King of Pop," the crowd roared. "How long has it been since Michael Jackson felt safe enough to just be in a room with people who love him?" The roar became a wave of applause mixed with crying. They understood they were witnessing something extraordinary. 3 months ago, Madonna said, and her voice broke slightly. "My friend Michael called me in the middle of the night. He was hurting in ways that most of us can't imagine. The world had beaten him down, and he was ready to give up. You could hear people crying throughout the arena. I made him promise me something," Madonna continued. "I told him, don't let them see you disappear. Let them see you stand." She turned back to Michael, tears streaming down her face. "Michael, I see you. We all see you. And we're asking you to stand. Not because you have to perform for us, but because we want you to know that you're still loved, that you're still the king, that they didn't break you." The arena was completely quiet. "Will you come up here?" Madonna asked. "Will you stand with me?" Michael sat frozen in his wheelchair. His security team was probably telling him no, that this was too dangerous. But then Michael thought about that phone call 3 months ago. Madonna had said, "When you're ready, I'll be there." She'd kept her promise. Now it was his turn. Michael slowly stood up from the wheelchair. The sound from 80,000 people was indescribable. It wasn't screaming or applause. It was something more primal, a collective gasp of surprise and joy and relief. Michael was shaky on his feet. He looked thinner than people remembered, more fragile, but he was standing. Security created a path through the crowd. It took almost 5 minutes for Michael to make his way to the stage. The entire time, the crowd was silent, except for occasional sobs. Everyone understood they were watching something sacred. When Michael finally reached the stage, Madonna was there waiting. She helped him up, her hand gripping his tightly. When they reached center stage together, the arena erupted. But Madonna held up her hand for silence. "Thank you for being here," she said to Michael. "Thank you for trusting us. Thank you for being brave enough to stand." Michael nodded, unable to speak. Tears were pouring down his face. Madonna turned to her band. "We're going to do something that's never been done before. Michael, do you remember the choreography for Vogue?" A flicker of a smile crossed Michael's face. Of course he did. "Can you do it with me?" Madonna asked. "We don't have to do the whole thing, just enough to remind everyone. Remind yourself what you're capable of." Michael looked out at the 80,000 faces staring at him. For years, crowds had meant danger. They meant invasion, judgment, pain. But these people weren't looking at him like he was a tabloid headline. They were looking at him like he was the king of pop. "Okay," Michael whispered. The opening beats of Vogue started again, and Madonna and Michael Jackson began to dance. Michael's movements were slower than they used to be. He didn't have the explosive energy that had defined his performances. But what he did have was something more powerful: presence. Every move he made was deliberate, purposeful, full of meaning. He wasn't performing for the crowd. He was performing for himself, proving that he could still do this. Madonna matched his energy perfectly, never overshadowing him, always supporting him. When Michael wobbled slightly during a turn, she was there. When he nailed a difficult move, she beamed at him with genuine pride. They danced together for about 90 seconds. It wasn't a full performance. It wasn't the spectacular show that either of them was capable of on their best day, but it was perfect. When the music ended, Michael and Madonna stood center stage, holding hands, both crying. The standing ovation lasted for over 7 minutes. Madonna brought the microphone close. "Michael, you want to say anything?" Michael took the microphone with a shaking hand. His voice was soft when he spoke. "I forgot," he said simply. "I forgot what it feels like to be loved instead of hunted." The crowd's response was a wave of sound that seemed to physically move through the arena. "Thank you," Michael continued. "Thank you for reminding me why I do this. It's not about the fame or the money or the awards. It's about this connection." He handed the microphone back to Madonna and whispered something in her ear. Later, Madonna would tell reporters what he said. "You saved my life tonight. I mean that literally." Security helped Michael off the stage, but this time he refused the wheelchair. He walked, slowly but steadily, back to Section J. Every person he passed stood and applauded him. Some reached out to touch his hand. He let them. Madonna finished her concert, but the energy had completely changed. What had started as a provocative pop show had transformed into something that felt more like a spiritual experience. After the show, Madonna spent an hour with Michael in her dressing room. They didn't talk about much. They just sat together, two people who understood what it meant to live under impossible expectations. "Do you feel it?" Madonna asked him. "Do you feel like you can keep going?" Michael nodded. "I feel like I can breathe again." 3 days later, the world changed. September 11th, 2001 brought a darkness that nobody was prepared for. In the weeks that followed, that night at Madison Square Garden took on even more significance. People who'd been there talked about it like a sacred memory. The last normal night before everything changed, and a night when two of the world's biggest stars reminded everyone that compassion and human connection were what really mattered. The footage of that night was copied onto VHS tapes, shared on early internet forums, passed from person to person like a precious secret. But Michael's team made sure it never got officially released. Michael wanted to protect the intimacy of that moment. Years later, after Michael died in 2009, Madonna was asked about that night. The interviewer wanted to know if she regretted stopping her show. Madonna looked at the interviewer like they were crazy. "That was the most important moment of my entire career. Not just my career, my life." Michael showed up that night with nothing left to lose, and 80,000 people reminded him that he was still loved, still valued, still important. She paused, remembering, people think fame is about being adored from a distance, but real fame is about connection. It's about being seen as a human being, not just as an image. "What do you think that night meant to Michael?" the interviewer asked. "I think it bought him 8 more years," Madonna said quietly. "I think it reminded him that there were still reasons to stay. I just wish it could have been longer." Today there's a plaque backstage at Madison Square Garden. Most people walk past it without really reading it. But if you stop and look, you'll see what it says. September 8th, 2001, the night the Queen of Pop stopped her show, so the King of Pop could remember how to stand. Some moments matter more than the performance. The people who were there that night carry it with them like a talisman. They tell their children and grandchildren about the time they watched Madonna and Michael Jackson dance together, not as rivals, but as friends who understood what it meant to be human in the face of impossible fame. And sometimes, when the world feels particularly dark, they remember that moment when 80,000 people chose compassion over spectacle, when a superstar chose her friend over her production schedule, and when a broken man found the courage to stand, because that's what that night was really about. Not the dancing or the singing or the star power. It was about one simple truth. We all need someone to help us stand when we've forgotten how. If this story touched your heart, hit that subscribe button and smash that like. Share this with someone who needs to be reminded that it's okay to ask for help, that it's okay to be vulnerable, and that true friends show up when you need them most. Drop a comment telling us about a time when someone helped you stand when you couldn't do it alone. And ring that bell for more incredible true stories about the moments that remind us we're all human.